Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So Shuri's beta buff tune-up information is out there and I grabbed this screenshot from Nick136 video. I will leave a link to his original kind of like buff review video in general. He's an awesome content creator as well that is extremely skilled as well in Battlegrounds and honestly has some of the better Battlegrounds streams in general as well, and obviously he's in CCP, so he also does showcase new new buffs and new champions and stuff like that. So definitely recommend to check him out. I will leave a link to his buff video, and yeah, hit him a sub. He's an awesome guy. But let's get to Shuri. So I will list all of the changes first, and then we're gonna go over the impact of it and whether I think the buff will be good and so on and so forth. And the first things first here is expanded the shock effect, refresh and pause from hits of special 2 to hits from all special attacks. And this is a really huge change. That means that you make Shuri much more player friendly, because previously to refresh you needed, I believe, heavy attack or a special 2, or it was just a special 2, but now you can spam your special 1 as well. And that actually becomes a viable rotation for most part when you just go and spam special 1s and then, you know, occasionally also drop some heavies and stuff like that. So he showcases some of it in his video too. Increased shock effect duration from 20 seconds to 22 seconds. That's, you know, not a massive change, but still not bad. Increased shock debuff damage from 0.1 attack to 0.22. So they slightly more than doubled the damage her shocks do, and that effectively also improves her ramp up twice. So she ramps up twice as fast as she used to, pretty much, if not even slightly faster, because of the level 1 rotation. Lowered the shock effect stack limit from 99 to 50 to effectively keep the max shock damage relatively the same. And then it is still slightly lower, I believe, because of the way critical damage shock multiplier works and stuff like that. So I do think she does slightly less max damage, but in reality, nobody ever cared or would care or does care about Shuri's max damage, because that's just exclusively pretty much for Abyss, and there are better options for Abyss. Increased special 3 direct damage burst for each shock and critical shock from 0.3 attack 3% to 0.375. I did think this is slightly undertuned, because that effectively means that her level 3 does quite significantly less damage at max ramp as well, but at the same time, it's not too important, really. That was never the problem with Shuri. So, to break it down, it's like why Shuri was considered to be bad champion. And all of it goes just to the fact that she's too slow. She's too slow, too weak, for 98% of the content. She would only be good in terms of damage in Abyss or Labyrinth level fights, and she would be maybe borderline acceptable, still below average, like Act 8 and stuff like that. Like, ironically, for instance, you know, even with all of the attack boosts in Thronebreaker EQ, when the nodes were perfect for Shuri, she was still extremely underwhelming, because even with like 200 or 150% damage boost, she just was far too slow. And now let's break down the effect these changes do. So the most important thing here is obviously they effectively doubled her ramp up speed. It means that for every 2 shocks you used to have to place, you need to place 1 single shock this time around to do the same amount of damage. And that, by the looks of it, and I would still want to see more gameplay of rank 3 Shuri or rank 4 Shuri without recoil masteries active, just to see the Deadpool level fights, because we did not get to see that from Nick's video at all. It is not looking likely that she will all of a sudden become like a Battlegrounds nuke. But previously, and I know that because in some of the metas I used Shuri myself in Battlegrounds, even in matchups where Shuri was like virtually perfect, going up against Domino and doesn't take crit fail damage, and Domino doesn't have the biggest health pool, you're still close to timeout, or timeout if you do not pull off your rotation perfectly. So that obviously is not viable. At the same time, giving you ability to finish fights at 60-65% second time limit does make her a viable champion, in fact. She's not going to be rushing down opponents in virtually none of the metas in like 30, 40 seconds. But giving her ability to hit that mid mark of the timer that we have in Battlegrounds could potentially make her viable. Again, as I say this, I do need to see more footage and example of it. But in theory, given the fact that now her shock damage is doubled, so effectively her ramp up time halved, in addition to the fact that you do have much more flexibility in the way you ramp up. You do not have to go specifically for this special, that special, that special. If you want, you can just quite literally spam level 1s and you will still keep ramping up in the fight. And you still have that extra 2 seconds on the shock durations too. Does lead me to believe that there is hope for Shuri to be like a viable champion for people to use. Given all of the extra abilities that Shuri has that I'm going to pull up, that people might be sleeping on because of the fact that she currently is just awful. Like, I mean, like, let's face it, Shuri is very, very, very awful right now for a majority of the content in the game. So if we open Shuri right now, she does have a lot of good things going on for her that I have never been, hesitant to point out. And let me pull it here. Fine. And so the fact that she is immune to her own precision, for instance, means that she will not trigger any buffs against Mystic champions. That means she will be, solid option, perhaps, against some of the tankier Mystic champs. Not necessarily Rintrah, because Rintrah has significant energy resistance, but in general, she maybe could be good enough to take down a Sasquatch or something of the similar type in Battlegrounds. And then on top of it, attacks are non-contact, deal energy damage instead. Obviously means you can never get accidentally parried. And having energy damage also, can open some paths for you. Then on top of it, that against mutant champions, I believe her ability accuracy cannot be reduced. Yeah. Shuri's ensures her ability accuracy can't be altered. And that's not just against mutant champions. That means that she will be able to bypass quite a lot of nodes as well, because in theory, that should effectively equal to being immune to concussions and ignoring disorient ability accuracy part and stuff like that. So that is a lot of utility there already. And then obviously access to a ton of debuffs, synergizing with Despair, access to her phasing can give her some extra openings as well when you need to land some cheeky heavy attacks on the go. And AI ensures special attacks can't be evaded. I don't think that's too important, but could be helpful at times. So overall, after this buff, with this version of Shuri, her ramping up twice as fast, do think that she could be a solid champion. I truly do. Again, as I said, this is without myself having played the character, without having the opportunity to have watched too much footage, because the only video that I could grab so far was from Nick, and there were no, 6.41 Deadpool fights or any similar length fights from Act 6 that would indicate the Battlegrounds or Alliance War kind of like duration fight. But I am hopeful, without a doubt. I'm not gonna undersell it or shy away from the fact that I do think that this is a very, very, very solid tune-up. Don't expect her again to be at the very top of the tech class or be the tech nuke, but I do think with this change she can make a solid standing in the tech class, in the upper half of it, as a champion with quite a bit of utility, quite a bit of underrated and unique utility. She's still the only champion in the game whose all attacks are projectiles, for instance. And that will, let you, being all of those attacks being projectile, I believe, for instance, she would completely ignore. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a good idea to bring her against Killmonger, but she would ignore Killmonger's reverb damage and stuff like that. So, anyhow, let me know what you guys think. To me, this looks about as good as I would have hoped that the tune-up of Shuri would look like. And the only question I have after seeing this tune-up is that if Kabam is self-aware of how far behind the curve Shuri was, is how the hell they released the character in her original form. That is the only thing in this entire thing that I do not understand. Her buff makes perfect sense. Her loops and kind of like user friendliness being improved makes perfect sense. Half the damage ramp up makes perfect sense. The only thing that does not make sense is why she was released in her original form ever. It's like if you release a champion and then double their damage half a year later, like surely you must know that the champion sucks before you. But no, we were told still Shuri is awesome when she was released. Look at that. I mean, should give food for thought, because when Shuri was coming out, I do not recall too many honest review videos coming from, the community about Shuri realistically before release or at the very beginning. Anyways, just something to think about. But meanwhile, let me know what you guys think about the buff, and do not forget to check out Nick. He's an awesome guy and definitely could use your support. See you guys soon. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about